Today we're looking at Q-Bert for the Commodore 64, released by Parker Brothers for the Commodore in 1983. We're talking about an arcade classic, a two-dimensional game that uses an isometric design to mimic a 3D playing field. I recall this game being fairly popular when it came out in the early 80s. It was unique, and there was something amusing about Q-Bert losing and, functionally, he's swearing on screen. I never saw this as being one of those machines that people clustered around in the arcade, but it was definitely common to every place I visited anyway, and it became much more of a franchise than I would have expected. There were bunches of remakes, was released on a ton of different systems, and it also spawned an odd cartoon in the 1980s, but it's a cartoon that I never watched. That was way back in the glory days of Saturday morning cartoons, which was something I was hooked on at the time. The basics of Q-Bert are relatively simple. You play this little alien guy who's really just a puffball with big feet and a big nose. You jump around a pyramid field, and the different platforms change color when you land on them. The goal is to change the color to match the needs of the level. On the top left of the screen, it'll show you what color you're looking for. When you get all the surfaces to match this color at the same time, you win the level. You also need to dodge snakes and balls that appear. Apparently you can catch some of these objects that are bouncing around, but the truth is, hey, I am not good at figuring out what I can and cannot grab, so more often than not, I dodge everything. You lose a life when you run into something bad, or if you jump off the pyramid, which is something I tend to do far too much. I think like many good arcade games, as you progress, the rules of the level start to change. In the early levels, a plane can only change color once, and then later on, they have to change color multiple times. It would be hard enough to figure out getting the colors right by themselves, both the addition of creatures chasing you, and then eventually needing to change the colors of the same spot multiple times. This one will keep you on your feet. I used to play this game a ton on the Atari 2600, and the Commodore version is definitely something that looks better. The 2600 version is certainly playable, but here the colors are better, and we get better visuals. The escape discs are spinning, and having a minor animation like this makes it much more appealing. Also, the text is clear on this screen, and I believe that getting text on screen for the Atari was a bit more of a chore due to its architecture, which is why you don't see a ton of text in Atari 2600 games. There's not much music to be had here, only between the levels. The rest, we just get sound effects as you're bouncing around and all the different obstacles you're moving. You know, beeps and bops. It's fine, and honestly, I'm not sure how I would react if there was a soundtrack behind this, because I guess it's just something I never expected. For me, the handling was the toughest part of this game. First, you need to twist your joystick 45 degrees clockwise. That sort of matches up with the screen movements. You're not going to be pulling straight down, you're actually going to be moving down at an angle when you hold the controller in that configuration. It is a little awkward, and you're going to need to adjust. Also, with the standard Commodore joystick, it feels strange because the base of the joystick is actually rectangular as opposed to square, so twisting it sideways a little bit feels strange in your hands. When you switch to a different joystick, if it has a square base, that does help a little, but for a while I felt myself struggling with this. I'd stop jumping, even though I was holding in the same direction. I thought it was a hardware problem at first, so I ended up trying some different joysticks. I also tried it in a few different systems. I tried it on an emulation machine, I tried it on a different motherboard, and I ended up finding a different program file entirely. The version I ended up with, it just worked best. It was a cracked version too, and it offered some basic cheats that you could enable, which I was really impressed with. You could remove enemies, and if you just wanted to jump around changing colors on screen, you could. I would have loved to have had this version when I was a kid. It made the game so much more fantastic, it was crazy. I do feel like this final version handled the best, so I kind of ran with it. I mean, we are talking a 40-year-old game, so who knows what the problem really was. It could have been hardware, it could have been software-based for all I know. I was certainly happy with the end results, and it eventually handled just fine. I enjoy Q-Bert, I do. It's fun to put in and play for a little while, but I'm still definitely better at the 2600 version. I can get through a ton of levels on that one. But this one, it's a little harder, even though it looks better. I had to work at this one a little more to get through the levels. Well, that's all I have today for Q-Bert for the Commodore 64. It's an arcade classic ported to an 8-bit computer system. Thank you for stopping by to take a look, and hope to catch you in another video.